Yes, exactly. It's very true. Yeah, yeah. That's really funny.
Well, I'm a little bit rushed because my alarm didn't go off when I wanted it to. But fortunately, my 8-month-old woke up every hour for the last 3 hours, so I was awake.
Peace be to you. Ain't no problem of evil. Let us begin.
Kia ora, and now mai haramai to another episode of Curiously Catholic, the Evangelion podcast. We've been doing a lot recently. I'm back on the boat of doing a weekly podcast. So we had the Messy Family Tour, which absolutely knocked me out. We had an interview with them. We had an interview with a guy called Jared talking about coming out of the occult into the occult, the Catholic occult, of course. And then we interviewed with Bobby. And now I'm going to be talking to a wonderful woman who I believe I'm related to, but we have not actually done the work to find out yet. Her name's Gabriella, and she has a TikTok account, and it's great stuff. So if you want to get involved in the mission of Evangelion, remember, evangelion.co.nz, subscribe to our email list, because I'm trying to use that now. Go onto Instagram, go onto TikTok, go onto Facebook, and check out all that stuff. The one thing you're going to be checking out is Gabriella. Nice to meet you. How's it going?
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me. It's going really well.
Yes.
Can't complain. Said my rosary today.
Well, I always say I can complain, but I won't.
Right.
Because I'm British. It's one of our favourite pastimes. If we don't have anything to complain about, there's always the weather.
I told you I'm British too, right? So maybe we truly are related.
Oh my gosh, you didn't tell me that. So for those of you
Yes.
listening, we kind of connected on TikTok. What your handle is organically
Integrated RN. I know it's a long one, and funny enough, it's because I was on Instagram and I still am, and that's usually my main platform. But I decided I was going to use TikTok as my true ministry, where every day I pray the rosary and every day I ask people for prayer intentions. And slowly but surely, people have been private messaging me. They have been leaving comments, and so every day I just say, Lord, please take these prayers, and if it's your will, hear them. And whatever your will is, let it be done for the people that are asking me to pray for them.
because that's how we connected. Because during the tour, I, as always happens, whenever we run a speaking tour, we have the whole family gets sick the week before, and then I have
Always.
to drive these people around Auckland and to the airport and back numerous times whilst recovering from what illness I've had, and and so like I was scrolling through TikTok and your thing came up saying, "Hey, I'm doing prayers for people. Just put your thing in the." So I said, "Okay, I'm doing a tour. I've got a podcast to do." And like at that point, like sleep wasn't great, the sore throat, runny nose, the works. And I was like, "This is pretty bad," and I've got to sit down and do like an hour podcast with them, and we still have 2 or 3 events to go to. So I just said, I'm just going to put it in here, and then we connected, and yeah, it's like I didn't realize the R in RN stood for rosary, and that's how we got chatting. And then and then we found out that not only are you're from Florida, which is where my dad lives, you are Italian and not from the same town as me, but like I'm going to say next door.
We're from the same state. That's
State.
all that matters.
Yeah. So we're Italian, Catholic, nurses, content creators, and apparently you're English as well, and you live in the same American state as my dad, and so I think we're related, so we're possibly cousins.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. We're cugini,
Cugini, yeah, there we go. Unfortunately, I've followed the route of my dad and not learned Italian, but I've dabbled in Spanish. I'm determined to learn Spanish because a lot of my family's in Argentina.
Very cool.
But like one day, I'm trying to use Gemini
Listen.
to teach me at the moment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I worked in Tijuana and I worked in Peru, and I don't speak Spanish. It would have been really helpful. But I tried, you know?
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of Hispanic Latin Americans over here in New Zealand, actually, which is not what I was expecting when I came here.
Wow. How long have you been in New Zealand?
13 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And some of my closest friends are Colombians or from Chile or Argentina, Peru.
Wow. There's a
Yeah.
lot of Calabres, like where we're from in Italy too, that went to Argentina. A lot of
Yeah.
Italians went to Argentina before they came to the States or
There we
elsewhere.
go.
So,
But yeah, so that's how we're connected. But I thought like your page is really good because I think you know I think also like there's a lot of prayer that's needed in the world, and Pope
hmm
Benedict said that the internet is the online continent that needs evangelizing, and we need to go out there.
hmm
And I'm doing it my way by just having conversations that I find interesting with interesting people, and you've done it
hmm
in this very direct way, which I think is really cool. And like, but it's interesting because you're doing a thing online, but really what you're doing is just letting people know what you're doing, which is praying for them. So I'm
hmm
praying. Let's just pray for them. And so you said you started on Instagram. You've moved to TikTok. Can you take us through that journey? Like, how did you discern to go onto it? How have you found it?
So, quite honestly, when I even started a TikTok account, it was so many years ago, and I opened the app and I was greeted with such vulgarity. Like there was so much, so that's all, that's the only word I can use. Like it was so vulgar that I like put the app off and I even deleted it. And I was like, I'm just gonna stick to Instagram. I'm gonna like post pretty pictures. And then
Mm,
I had my third baby and I was like, I want to study functional medicine and I'm gonna, do health coaching on the side. And so I started organically integrated RN. And then last year I heard on a another podcast with Jeff Cavins, actually, he said we are called to be organically integrated with God in our lives here on earth. And that really struck me and kind of moved me in the sense where, like, the Holy Spirit said, this is what I'm calling you to do. You
mm,
are organically integrated because I'm in your life, so show people, or let's show people your journey kind of
mm,
in that. And so I also at the time had a friend who was doing really well on TikTok, and
mm-hmm.
she is a CRNA, and she's really, really great at what she does. And I mean, if I would have anyone put me under anesthesia, it would be her. Like that's it. But when I went back to TikTok, I said, you know what? I'm not going to take my Instagram content and put it up there. I am just going to tell people, listen, I'm praying the rosary today. Like this year, I committed to praying the rosary every day. I've been praying it since I was in third grade,
Mm,
not consistently, but since I was in third grade. So I said, what else will keep me so accountable
mm,
other than telling people, I'm going to keep you in prayer. And
right.
I want to know how I can pray for you. And it's grown in a way that's for me is expected, but how can anything be unexpected when you're trying to do God's work? You should be expecting everything and
Right.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And yeah, so
Yeah, and I think that's because the phrase that I try and live by with the podcast is I want to be faithful, not successful. And
yes.
it's like there's lots of nuance and caveats. Like, I mean, not that I don't want to be successful. I do. If I'm doing something, I want it to work. But my aim is that it is. My aim is that it's like not as intense. It's like my goal is to just produce, and whatever happens
Right.
with what's produced is in God's hands. Um, I would pray that that's success. But like, I guess one thing I've learned doing this journey, because Evangelion's been running for 6 years, is success looks different for lots of like different things. Like, what are your goals? That's what the success is. Or actually,
hmm
like for example, like this last tour, I ran an event and everything seemed to be falling to pieces. And I'd just come from an event where there was over 100 people that came to speak, hear the Hernan speak. And then my event, I think there was about 10 to 20 people there. And like, part of me was like, thank God, because I just I'd been to the one event, we'd stayed up late talking with friends, and I'd driven from Hamilton as fast as I could and made it just in time for the next event. I was like, look, I don't have the energy to deal with a room full of 100 people and screaming children right now. And I didn't have to. There were screaming children, but the success
Hmm.
wasn't like, oh, it was 100 people. The success was it was a very disparate group of people. It wasn't like, oh, it's just my parish have turned up, and so only the people that came were the people that I physically, verbally told. It was people that saw
Hmm.
my poster in their parish from the other side of Auckland. It was, and people that I'd never seen before and may never see again. And I was like, you know what? That shows that actually, at a pinch, I can still run an event, and so it was a good event. But you got to look at the
That's
success differently, and you know, my goal for success is to do what God intends for this podcast, for this TikTok,
right.
Instagram.
Right? What are the fruits of the labor, right? And
Mm,
that's kind of it's such a different like dynamic of what the world tells us. Like,
right.
no, like you need to be successful and it has to be big. Like, does it have to be big? Because my understanding is if I bring one person to heaven, like, not that that's enough is what I'm saying, but
Right.
like that is enough. Like, how is God calling us to work with those in our lives? And it's funny because like I look at like my Instagram and I'm like, oh, I have 1,700 followers, but like if I were to talk to a room of 1,700 people, that's
Far
a
out,
lot
man.
of
Yeah.
people. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? 600 people. If only 100 people or 59 people see what I'm doing, that's a
Yeah.
lot of people. How would I feel standing in a room
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
25 people?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think,
Um,
especially when it comes to numbers, it's more of a cumulative thing.
yes.
You got to look at things. Don't. Yeah. I suppose the onus needs to be on. I'm going to work my best. I'm going to put out what I'm going to do to the highest level, and the rest of it doesn't matter because I think you know in I think the church teaches this about a lot about agency. It's about what you do. It's about how you live your life and how you pray, how you focus on that, and the rest doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about how the lady next to you is praying in the pews. You don't need to worry about what this person says on the internet in your comment section. You just need to do your thing and do it faithfully and do it firmly. Don't half half ass it or anything. Just put your 100% into being the most effective person you can be, most faithful person you can be, and then just throw the rest to God.
Right.
So there's a lot about personal agency. I was saying in the episode yesterday is like I feel like the self-improvement movements you see and like optimization, it's just Catholic teachings put into scientific lingo, which is great because I love it when science backs up the truth. But
Hmm.
um, but yeah, there's heaps of good stuff about that. Coming to back
Hmm.
to social media,
Hmm.
something that I've been going through recently, and I guess it's always been a case of, especially nowadays, the world is about sharing your life on the internet,
Mm.
and
Mm.
there's always been a bit of like, ugh, a bit of repulsion to that. It's like there's too much. You don't want to share your life on the internet, and there's a big debate about whether you put your kids on and this and that, and people that have done, and the ethics around that. But
Hmm.
your life, as you mentioned, well, the part of your life that you're definitely sharing online is your rosary, and
Hmm.
you have done you decided to pray a rosary daily, and I think it's really beautiful that you said like I've decided to use it. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to be praying. I might as well be praying for you.
Hmm.
How have you? What kind of reactions have you had to people, or people had to you on the line, and how has sharing your life on the internet impacted your life?
I think right now I'm coming into a type of conversion because people will ask for specific prayers. And one specifically that came in was about, oh, can you pray for this person? They're going through IVF and it didn't
Oh
take.
wow.
And I responded politely, and I've grown in these responses, but I said I will pray for God's will, but the church does not
Mm,
condone IVF. And it's hard for me, and I know it's hard maybe for other women to hear it too, that I have three children. I've had one miscarriage.
mhm.
I had three successful pregnancies. I don't know what it's like. So I'm sure that comes off hurtful, and I feel for that. But I relate it to desiring other things, which I know we can't compare life to money. But like, if I wanted money, I can't go rob a bank. So you're robbing to me,
All right.
and maybe it's crass. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this may not be what God is calling to you. And yes, you want it so bad. So why don't we turn to Him and say, I want this, but reveal to me why I can't have it?
Yes. No.
And sit with that, because He will speak to you. I think we put God in a box sometimes if we're not seeing result,
Right. Well,
right?
yeah. 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 I think we put God in the box for lots of reasons, but
For
like,
so many things.
you know, infertility is such a like a really heavy burden, and
For sure.
like I feel like there's not that much. Um, it's a hard thing to support with. Um, Me and my wife went through our own time of infertility, but even then, like we found like because the hurt is so deep for each
Mm-hmm.
individual person that like I found now that like sometimes you'll talk to someone and like, oh yeah, you try relate with them, say yeah we went through infertility, and I was like, yeah, well, you got kids now, because there's that like ouch right there. um
Mm-hmm.
and like I think it's something that needs to be explored and talked about more, but it's got to be done in the
Mm-hmm.
right way. Because I think, one thing I learned from the tour I did with the Hernans is that we're all going through the same things. We're
Mm-hmm.
all fighting the exact same battles, but in a world where we've got TikTok and Instagram and podcasts and the online world, there's less communication. And I think it's like the first time I tried to do shopping at the supermarket for myself. I went to go and buy myself a meal. I know how to make. I think I was going to make like spaghetti or something, and I knew how to make the ingredients when they were in my kitchen. But I went to the
Mm-hmm.
supermarket and I was faced by a wall of every type of pasta in like several different types of brands, and I just completely like had no idea what to do with it. I was like, which one do I buy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want the straight one, but there's six different straight ones, and I don't know which is the right one. And like, I think it's similar online. I don't know how to deal with this. I'll Google it. 3,782 answers. Okay. And they're all saying different things, and some of them saying the same thing. And what do I do? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like we've gone from this community that's like more human, where they say that the human brain can only process 500 faces,
Mm-hmm.
and even in Auckland we've got 1 million people, and so if you're
Mm-hmm.
living in the city centre, you're going to see 500 people on your way to work, and then you're going to work in a
Right.
building and you're going to see a bunch of others.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is an overwhelm, and it's difficult to talk about these things, even though we have increased communication. It's kind of an oxymoron. It's a bit insane.
Because I think for the most part, right, we want to project an unrealistic life of
Right.
in the way we communicate it. So if you look at my TikTok, I look like a mess. I don't get dressed up. I don't look fancy. I have my workout clothes on. My kids might be screaming in the background. And it's not because I don't care, but it's because the point isn't about how I look or how I'm presenting my content. It's about
Right.
what I'm doing, right? If what I'm doing is centered around glorifying God, then who cares what I look like? Because you should be able to see him through me.
Yes.
That's the point. And so getting back to the conversation of even motherhood, like I discerned being a nun, like I discerned religious life for a year. And funny enough, it happened after a priest set me up with somebody that he knew, and they left me brokenhearted. And I was like, I'm all set. Like, I think I'm not called to married life, you know? And
Right.
I was living in California, and I had met a priest who was Peruvian, who was out in Colorado. And I went to Estes Park, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to take a year. And when it came to that final year, and Mother Superior was like, why religious life? And I was like, giving your life to Jesus is the best. And I was like so on fire. And she's like, and tell me what you think of like married life. And I was like, you know, you fight with someone every day for the rest of your life and you're committed to it and you see Jesus in those children. And I started crying, and she's like, sweetheart, this is not for you. Like, you would be crying about giving your life to Jesus. We should not be crying. Like, that's fine and good and beautiful. Like, babies are innocent. Like, when
Yeah.
you see a baby, how can you not look at a baby and be like, love? That's just
Yeah.
not, it's not possible. It's not, you just can't. But, you know, I look at my kids now, and things, days are tough. Parenthood is tough. It is not for the faint of heart. So I'm like, you called me this? Like, you
Yeah, yeah.
chose me for this. And so again, like, I feel for these women, but I also stand morally, and with the church, where like if I'm going to call myself a Catholic, then I also need to provide the appropriate answers and say, I cannot, this is, I will pray for God's will and for healing, but I know that God's will is not for us to do these things because we are putting ourselves in the position of God. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way. They may see it as like, because we're nurses, right? Like, you can see it as a mean, oh, well, it's just a more scientific way because my body can't. But why can't our bodies? And that gets into this whole body autonomy and how did God create us, and, you know, the things we've done.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe take it a step further where like people, you know, I'm sure you guys get this too. Like, are you gonna have another one? You gonna have more? And it's
Yeah.
like, whatever God wants. And, or like someone said to me the other day, because I told them, I was like, no, like natural family planning is the way for us. And they go, oh, you're hardcore. I'm like, well, yeah, my goal is to get myself and my husband to heaven. So like,
Yeah,
you
man.
know, um,
That's
and thank
such a
you for
cool.
the grace of confession, but like literally, like
Right.
these are
Yeah.
the things that you have to struggle with, and imagine the other things that people do have to struggle with day to day, minute to minute, you know.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a catechist by any, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
theologian.
Yeah.
So,
And I think like one of the struggles that I've had when it comes to the content creation is people when it comes to Catholic content, they're like, ah, are you going to be talking about, you know, Thomas Aquinas? Are you going to be going through the latest encyclical? Are you going to be, and like, you know, I'll dabble in that stuff, but you know,
mhm,
I used to listen to Pints of Aquinas when it first came out, and it was just Matt Fradd talking about Thomas Aquinas, and I just couldn't follow
mhm,
him, man. It was so hard. Like when he was
mhm,
reading from the Summa, I just was like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't understand. And then I just wait for the explanation and just hope something would stick. And it rarely did.
mhm,
But like, you know, the things that really connect with me are like stories of the saints and a
mhm,
real kind of, you know, the kind of I guess more human level of Catholicism, and that's a beautiful thing about the church
mhm,
is it's a very human institution for all its good and all its bad. There is a
mhm,
we've got the bad parts. We all know the bad parts of the human institution, but the good parts
right,
are we are human, and therefore confession is done in person. We are human, and
mhm,
therefore, you know, the Lord blessed us by making His presence visible, and tangible. There's bells, there's smells, there's actions with your body during mass, sit, kneel, stand,
yes,
and it's very human. And so, like, I think you know, I'm an emergency nurse, and that I don't just say that because you know I like the idea of it, but because it's who I am. As an emergency
Right.
nurse, you're dealing with what comes in. And when it
Mm-hmm.
comes, if someone stays in the emergency department a bit too long, and we're getting to like the regular medications like bisoprolol or beta
Mm-hmm.
blockers, ACE inhibitors, or something like that, we're like, we don't have those. We have to go to a different department and find them. And
Right.
because like you come in, are you dying? Yes, let's stop that from happening. Let's keep you alive, and now you're alive. Go away. you know, it's
It
it,
is
it's
like
just
that.
it's
Yeah.
just deal with the trauma, deal with the issues, deal with the acute problems. What's happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter how tall you are. All the like, it doesn't matter on your personality. Are you dying? I'm here for you. That's all it is. And that's kind of my
Mm-hmm.
personality of like, what's happening right now? Where are we? What can I see? What can I taste? What can I touch? And that's what makes sense to me. So when and like
Mm-hmm.
the going in, keeping on a nursing analogy, going into the path of physiology and the pharmacology is super interesting and helpful. But until it's
Mm-hmm.
helpful, it's completely useless. Like when I was
Yes.
doing my degree, every time I was in class, I was like, I'm going to be a terrible nurse. I'm so bad at this. Second I got on the floor, I was like, this is like a duck to water. Absolutely perfect for
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm brilliant at this. But like,
Mm-hmm.
so, and it's the same with the faith. I sit down and listen to the Summa. I don't think I can be Catholic. I kneel down. I kneel down in front of the Eucharist, and this is home. Because I'm
Right.
here interacting with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I grab my rosary beads, and I'm actually really grateful for my church at the moment because the priest there has made it incredibly beautiful with art and just how he's organized it all. It's not just aesthetically nice, but it's religiously significant. And so he's recently
Mm-hmm.
just installed these statues of Saint Michael the Archangel, and
Beautiful.
it's just stunning. And it to the point of like, it's a really ugly building, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
you walk inside and it's just this majesty and grandeur, and it's not done in
Mm-hmm.
an overtop the way. It's not like a European cathedral or anything by any standard, but it's a place where I can maybe it's distracting enough in the right way to pull me out of my human proclivities to be distracted by things that aren't good. And
Mm-hmm.
I can go I'm brought to my knees there. I can go into
Mm-hmm.
my bedroom and I can put myself on my knees and I can try and bring myself to a point of prayer. But in that church, I can walk in and even with the kids pulling me and screaming, I can see something that will reduce me, that will take me away from my um, fallen humanity to the place where God wants us to reflect on eternity. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think those tangible things are really helpful for me. That's where I'm at with my faith. And yeah, I think I can't remember how we got onto that conversation, but that's my faith.
Well, it's funny when we talk about like the tangible. So I love bringing people to church. But years ago, a friend brought me to adoration, and then I moved to California. For said boy, the priest set me up with, terrible. And
Oh,
we did not live together. Just let me make that clear. And this friend had written me a letter and sent me a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe because that's the church I ended up working with in Northern California. And it said, seeing you in the Eucharist. And like from that, before
wow.
that, but from that moment on, like going to adoration and sitting with Jesus has
Mm,
become something that when I don't go, I feel like I suffer. And so I bring my kids, even if it's 5 minutes. I get the three of them in the car. I was like, oh, we're passing the church. We're gonna stop in. And my 3 year old's like, we're gonna go to the little church. And I'm like, yes, the chapel. We're gonna go to the
Mm.
Adoration Chapel. And it's nice because they have books there for the kids. They obviously can't be loud, but we go in and, is that Jesus? Yes, that's Jesus. And um I had a coworker who was struggling with faith and was mad at God. And I walked into work one day pretty unassumingly and was like, I just prayed the St. Michael prayer for us because, like, I want us to have a good day at work today. And she was like, oh, thank goodness. And, and then we got to talking. I was like, if you ever want to come back to church, like, if you ever want to come, let's go to adoration. Well, she met me at adoration a few weeks later. She walked in and she just bawled her eyes out, and she's been coming back to mass every weekend. And it's been beautiful to be instrumental, like, make me a channel of your peace, thank you, God.
Mm.
And I wish that we could apply that to every day, like, oh goodness, like, I'm having a tough parenting day, thank you, God. And some days I do, or some days it's like, God, Jesus, help me, please help me, like, you know um but I think because we seek, and maybe this is just like, the thoughts that I have, because I'm fault for this too. I want to be great, but when do we stop and think, like, God, I want you to be so great, use
Mm.
me?
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that has to be in everything we do. And I felt that way as a nurse, as a nurse too. Um, God, how can I use the gifts you've given me to help this person, to soften their suffering? And I can tell you now, and maybe this is like going into something else, but, like, as a nurse, I have a really hard time with death and dying. Like, I was
Oh.
never made to be a hospice nurse. I've helped patients who were end of life, and I've been there for families. And um, I think one of the problems for me was the culture that I was part of at this particular hospital. Like, it didn't matter anymore. Like, it was like, yeah, well, if they're not dead now, they will be when they're at the morgue. Like, what? Like, these are the things we're saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a slap in the face to life. And I've even had people, talk about other, taboo things like abortion. Well, what do you mean that fetus can't live without the mother? And I'm like, you're barking up the wrong tree, man. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to have this conversation because, one, I don't believe that you're saying it.
Mm.
Again, like, and I think that's where God has, like, helped me grow to be able to have more mature, calm conversations, because I
Right.
am Italian, Hungarian, British. And so, like, I can get fiery and be
Right.
like, you said what? You know? Um, and so again, like, glory to God, how do I glorify him?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, like,
Um,
as a nurse we're faced with such unique situations, and I think
mhm.
the, like, psychological coping mechanism is dark humor.
Yes,
You see so
I
much you
agree.
see so
I
much dark
agree.
stuff, and then you're just like, if we don't laugh we'll cry, so let's make a joke of it.
I know.
And, like, I think you've got to be, we've got to, as healthcare professionals, we've got to be careful with that. But, like, you know
Yes.
if those of you that aren't healthcare professionals, just know it's a coping mechanism. um
Right. Nobody, oh no. And I'm not, like, saying it like, oh, that terrible person. Like, you see a lot of things, but I think what's hurt, like, for me, what I've had to reflect on more in the past is, like, I've had friends who have had family members pass away, and they're like, you didn't come to the funeral, you didn't reach out. And I'm like, I don't know how. Like, I have a very hard time. And funny enough, I actually deferred I for a year nursing school because I had seen people die. This is insane to me to say it out loud, but, like, I held my dog while he was euthanized,
oh,
and
wow.
that for some reason struck such a chord for me, just in our mortality.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
was like, I don't know if I can handle this. And I just think that some people need to know, especially, like, in nursing, like, what are your strengths and what are you okay with? And what, like, even the job interview I had today, it's for anesthesia. I'd be basically a PACU nurse, but traveling to different gynecology offices. And I had to ask the question, like, what procedures are we doing? And for that
Yeah,
question. It
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
no. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I can't take this position if this is what I'm going to be subject
yeah.
to, because I won't, you know.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, and I do agree there. You do have to have a coping mechanism. I think I'm just so innocent and I've been this way my whole life that I'm kind of like, whoa, like,
No,
yes,
no,
okay,
definitely. And
haha.
I think, well, the point I was trying to make is that like we have to also be aware that dark humor is dark, and we have
Yes.
to. So we can't let it be our baseline. So because
Yes.
like you know, jokes can be funny and offensive jokes can be funny, but if you're saying an offensive joke over and over again, you're actually just saying an offensive thing. It's like, okay, everyone stopped
Yes.
laughing, and I know you're joking, but
Hmm.
like, or like, read the room type thing. If someone's
Right.
if so, if someone's crying about something, maybe wait for the joke, maybe leave the punchline to later. And like again,
Right.
we're so used to it that like maybe it doesn't occur to us, and like I've definitely been in situations before where I've said something a bit light-hearted at the wrong time, and someone's not been okay with it. But
Of
yeah,
course. I think,
it, it's a fine line to travel. But like we were talking earlier about the social media posting and like
hmm
the putting our life on the internet, and I think this kind of comes into like our nursing practice as well, is the role of authenticity,
hmm
because you mentioned how people online are only sharing the highlights reel of their life. And so
hmm
when you're looking for advice, when you're looking for examples, we have to bear in mind that people aren't putting themselves online when it's their worst day. Or if
hmm
they are doing, it's a manicured version of their worst day. You know,
hmm
it's the bit where the suffering looks good, where they can get points for it or something.
hmm
And so, the role. I think we're coming into this era of a more authentic life online,
hmm
showing the human side of the content creator, warts and all. How has that formed your approach to sharing your faith? How has it affected you? I can say it's quite it can be quite hard to put yourself online when you're not feeling like it. Like during the tour last week, I didn't post anything for maybe 3 weeks because I was just like, I feel like crap, and I don't know if it would be any good, and how will it affect the algorithm? you know.
I
Um,
know the things you think about.
so like how do you navigate that, and how is it has it brought anything into your day to day?
I think what's hard is that in order to do it, you have to. And so for me, I actually started getting up and reading the Bible more in the morning and being like, what are you trying to, God, how do you want to use me today? And what's been nice is I actually worked with a few companies like Acutis AI. They're a new AI platform that uses the catechism,
All right.
and they're great. And so I'm like the mom because it was created by two college kids. So I'm like, oh, I can create the mom content and how the internet can be used in a safe way. Or Knight's Coffee is another. They all their proceeds go to helping seminarians, and so luckily God has put other people who my faith is aligned with, who help, like it helps me with that creation. Really, I think for me, like in my personal life, I do really try to keep my kids off my social media page. Like I have private things for that, because I don't know what it's going to look like 20 years from now for them. Like, what was my mom doing?
Right.
It might be that, or God willing, it's, well, look at how faithful my mother was, that she loved God so much that she wanted to share parts of her life and she wanted to share what he was doing through her, even though sometimes it was really hard. And there are days where I think I have such imposter syndrome. Like, do I not know enough about the Catholic faith? Do I not represent Jesus well enough? Or the church well enough? And there are times where I'm like, where are the moms that are imperfect like me? Because you see other creators or even other Catholics around you. Like, I know for us, there's a huge Latin Mass community and it's beautiful, but my family's just not there yet,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
you want to be equally yoked with the person you're with and who you're married to. And we are in so many ways, but truth be told, like, my husband came back to the church because we started dating, because that was the divide. Like, we either do this or we cannot be together. And you know that it's hard. It's hard when, his vows were, my vow is to get you to heaven, because I bought him rosary beads.
Mm.
Um And, how do you stick through that? It's been 12 years, and yes, he's gone to mass, he's gone to confession. We do these things together. He's raising the kids with me well in the faith. But like, should I go to Latin mass? Like, is it wrong that I don't? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Mm.
kind of that mental game, more so from my perspective and my creation. Like, am I going to say the wrong thing? Um, will I be embraced by my sisters in Christ who maybe are further along in their faith journey? Are people going to think I'm a hypocrite? My biggest goal is to understand more people, perhaps, who don't believe that Jesus found the Catholic Church, that don't understand the devotion to the Blessed Mother,
Mm.
um, that don't understand who the saints are and think they're just dead people. Um, those are the things that I think about. Or more so now, I came across, I think it was Luke 21, or it might be Luke 12, but Jesus was giving a parable and someone cries out, "Blessed is the womb that bore you." And
Mm.
he said, well, blessed are those that hear and it remains.
Mm.
But imagine being in the crowd. Like, I was thinking about it, like, is that the first person who was like the Blessed Mother? Like, blessed is the woman who bore you. Like, is that God telling us, like, you see, even a stranger in the crowd acknowledges the womb that bore him. So how could you not acknowledge her? Do you know what
Mm.
so these are the things that now, as far as
Right.
like my content creation goes on, like, how does God want me to frame this? Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it also, you know what I mean? Or like, and it's hard too, like, protecting my kids from it. Like, Mom, you're on your phone. Like, yes, I'm on my phone. And so, like, that's the other thing. Like, how do I balance this? How do I create
Yeah.
that divide? How do I make sure I'm there playing? But like, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm interviewing for jobs, I'm still an IV nurse. Like,
Mm.
I want to go out, I want to do things. We're active. We talk about faith and fitness too. Like, keeping your body sound is in line with the faith, right? Like,
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
doesn't call us, I mean, hello, one of the seven deadly sins is gluttony. Like, we need to be aware. Like, yeah, we're not just talking about food, we're talking about the internet, we're talking about all these other things that come into our lives that we're overdoing.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
where in the realm of content creation and the companies that want to work for you, that are in line morally, or you want to work for them or this or that, and you want, like, again, how do I glorify God in this without spiraling out of control or
Yeah.
letting the
Yeah.
enemy in?
Yeah. Something something that, like, you said a lot there. I'm trying to form it into like one
Sorry, I
question, but
know.
no, because it's really good, and you touched on a lot of really real situations. Something that I really struggle with is when I find a content creator online and I follow them and I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm gonna look at them. I'm gonna follow them. I'm gonna just consume the content. I'm like, oh wow, they're doing really well. And then I find out, they're giving me all this, like, they're putting out this life advice online, and then I find out, oh, they don't
Mhm.
have kids. They don't even know, or like, oh, they do this full time. They
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
have a job.
yeah.
This is their job. They've managed to make money for them, and good on them for that. But I
Yes.
can't relate. Like, I remember this impacting me a long time ago, long before kids. I was following a lot of Jason Everett stuff, and it's like a day in the life of Jason Everett. Like, oh, brilliant! I'll read this,
Yes.
and then I will
Mm-hmm.
create it in my life. And he was like, I wake up at this time, I play basketball, I see my kids, we do prayer, we do da da da. And I was like, oh yeah, because he doesn't. His job is, writing things. So it's like, all right, so
Mm-hmm.
I can't relate to that because my job is, not, well, at the time it was a 9 to 5. I had things to do,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was really discouraging. But like, you're talking there, and something that I thought that particularly struck me is you were saying like you're doing your life, and we're putting this on the internet. Something my wife said to me a bit ago that like shook me was, I think it's really cool because long after you're gone, our kids are going to be able to look at your videos and say, "What did Dad think about this?" And then
Mm.
then all of a sudden it just started raining on my face. I don't know what happened. It's weird, but
That's funny.
like you're in the situation where you're doing something that you feel called to, and it's beautiful, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's producing fruit. It's helped me. You prayed for me. You prayed for all these beautiful
Thank
people. You
you.
have these great interactions. But the concern that I have, and I'm sure you have, is what if my kids, they go back and look at my videos, is like, oh yeah, I remember that interview. I was meant to be, Dad was meant to be helping with this, but he chose to do the interview. Or like, oh yeah, I
Mm.
remember that video. Uh, Dad wasn't present again. And like, oh wow, that would be the worst, right?
Yes.
And so like we talk about authenticity, and
Mm-hmm.
we're putting our life out onto the internet. So how do we integrate the content creation without um, you know breaking the relationship with the tiny human in front of us, without forming that strong bond that's going to maintain connection with them throughout their lives.
Right.
How do, because like one thing I'm just going to say a lot and just let you respond to it, because I think about this like with musicians as well, because you can't force creativity. you know there's obviously certain things you can do to bring it about, and you can maybe do those things, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're the worry is that we're so focused on content creation that we sacrifice something more important. And so you can't just keep creating songs as a musician. When the song comes, you put it out. But like algorithms, if you don't post consistently, you don't post.
Right.
And so like how do we manage it all? How do we manage it all? You're a nurse, you're a mum, you've got your you go for your runs, you wear your frownies, you do all those things.
I do.
I
The
don't know.
frownies I just have to sleep in. So
But like you've got all these things you're trying to manage, and you're content
yeah.
creating, you know, the authenticity, the management, like how do you bear these calls that you have on your heart to motherhood, to healthcare, to content creation?
I think for me, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and funny enough, my father's a musician.
Oh
So
wow.
it's so funny that you use that analogy because with all of the beautiful things that have gone on in my life, from childhood to adulthood, there are things that I've carried in which I remember, like speaking of like having a creative father was a really beautiful thing, but it wasn't always easy. And sometimes things were said that until I was 20, I didn't, I said to my dad, you said this one thing like about your guitar, about how important it was to you, like, and it made me feel so little. So like when I'm creating or my phone's in my hand all day, I always am with my kids, giving them affection and saying, like, what can I do for you? What do you need help with? And the minute they ask, like, hey, look at me, hey, I need this, like, put the phone down and give them the attention right away. And I think what I sacrifice a lot is some of like my mental health because I recently found my arm running band in with my pots and pans and I've been looking for it. So I must have misplaced it. But today, like really as especially as I was getting ready to like have this conversation because we don't know where the spirit's gonna guide us and like in perhaps which way the enemy might try to infiltrate. It was like, what am I gonna like God give me the grace to talk about the reality of what I'm going through. Like, so for instance, 5 years, for the past 5 years, we've been living in the state of New Hampshire. And I talked a little bit about how my life has been dramatically transformed through prayer. Well, last year I prayed, please, dear God, let my husband get a new job. If it's your will, like take us to travel somewhere. If I would love to spend 2 months with my family and with my parents in Italy with the kids. Like if like through your grace, God, and 4 months after my husband was looking for a job, he got this job and he almost didn't get it. And then once he got the job, he was like, this is going to allow us to have the freedom. Like if we want to move, across the country, if we want to move to the south, you want to do that and go on an adventure, we can. Well, he really led. Like I prayed to Saint Monica, like please like let him lead and let me follow because my reaction when he was like, "Yep, we're putting the house up on the market and I'm going to go find us a house down in Florida." And like, "What do you mean?" And that was God being like, "No, no. You prayed for this and like pay attention." And I was like, "Why?" Like my skin, like my humanness is like crawling because I said these words and you took them literally.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like that's the thing. And so then we moved to Florida and then God was like, all right, here we go. Like, you want to go to Italy for 2 months? Well, ring, ring, Nana and Nana. We're like, hey, if he needs to go get the house ready, if it's easier for you to come here with the kids, like, we'll fly you over. I spent 2 months in Italy
Wow.
with the kids. And I had always said to God, I don't need to be a millionaire. I just don't want to be in an enormous amount of debt. And I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but here in the States, nursing school, especially when you're going to do an accelerated program like in Boston, at a prestigious school, it's $100,000.
Wow.
And I took out that money. And so here I am, not working full time, working part time, but picking up shifts. And, we have a mortgage and we had our house and we had all these things, but the house needs work. I'm holding my rosary, right? Like, of course. And so, all these things. Well, our house, we had so much equity in the house. Thank you, God, that we were able to pay off that debt
Wow.
and buy a
Wow.
house. And so, you know what I'm saying? Like that whole, like the instant gratification, what do we sacrifice? What do we pray for? Like all of these things, I have seen it all in my whole life, whether it's content creation, becoming a nurse, being a figure skater. Like I was a competitive figure skater.
I
And a
also
lot
did
of
figure
people
skating.
don't know you did. Stop it.
No, I did. It was only one summer. It was only one summer, and
Oh, okay.
like they wanted me to pursue it further, but I just didn't have money at the time. So, but yeah.
And see, that's the thing. And so you talk about sacrifice. Like, I think my parents remortgaged their house 4 times for me to skate. And I skated in
Wow.
Italy. Like, I went over and I trained with the team. And then I lived at the Olympic Center in upstate New York. Like, that was my life.
Yeah.
And one day I just said to God, like, I can't do this anymore. Like my body's suffering. I had an eating disorder. I broke my tibia. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was just kind of like, what am I doing? And then I was lost for a little while. Um, but the one thing I've always been called to my whole life is mass. And I grew up in a household, and I don't know if how you were raised, but my mother was a traditional Italian Catholic, and my father was raised Unitarian and baptized to marry my mom.
Oh wow.
And so my mother always brought us to church, but people, and maybe this is like off topic too, but people always be like, well, aren't you worried about your father getting into heaven? But the prayers that I have, one, I feel like there is conversion coming because he comes to adoration. At least he's come to adoration with me. He does go to mass. Um, he obviously doesn't receive
Mm.
um, the Eucharist, but I can't help but hear God being like, look at what he did, like, look at what he had a hand in,
Mhm.
you know? And so I pray about that a lot. I know that there's a lot there.
No, no.
Um,
I thought it was really beautiful how your prayer and your reaction to prayer were your prayer, like it's like a really good analogy of the eternal and the or the sacred and the profane. Your
Hmm.
heart was looking at eternity and saying, I'm going to put it. This is where this is what I want, God. And like as a child turns to the dad and says, I want more ice cream. It's what I want. This is what's in my heart, and this is what I'm yearning for. And then, you know, uh, and then he gave it to you, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
That's too
What?
much.
Well, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
it's like it's the dream versus the reality of I want to go to Italy. It's like, well, you're gonna have to get on a plane. And like, I hate flying. Like, oh gosh, but that makes sense. Um, and like I thought that was really beautiful of like the kind of life coach version of me was like, yeah. So when if you want to make big moves, you have to make big moves. If you want big things,
Hmm.
you have to do the big things that are involved, and that's scary and it's
Right.
hard, and so you have to prepare yourself for that. Um, then it's like the other side of me is like, well, the beautiful thing about the crucifixion is, and something that just really resonates with me every time I think about it, is it's the sacrifice play that it's the play that no one saw coming. It's like, okay, how
Right.
are you going to win this battle? I'm going to die. I'm like, that's losing. That's not winning. That's the opposite of
Hmm.
winning.
Hmm.
But like, if someone, you know, someone's like, oh, you owe a lot of money. Okay, I'll sell my house then. Oh, I didn't know. I mean, you can do that. I didn't know you were going to though.
Hmm.
Um, Going all in on your life is a faith move. Following the call that you have in your heart, which a desire is a yearning of the heart,
Hmm.
is a faith play. And when you start praying for things, we spoke about this earlier. You kind of have to expect it to happen, but you also have to face the reality of it happening, and
Right.
that means you have to do the work. You have
Right.
to, like, one of my favorite stories in the scriptures is in 2 Kings with Elijah. And again, it's just so human. He's just like defeated the priests of Baal through this most amazing feature, and he's berating them the whole time. Like, okay, we're gonna pray to our God. He's gonna set the fire to these pieces of wood, and you're gonna have your pieces of wood over there. And Elijah's like, cover in water. More water. Keep going. Yeah, yeah, whatever. Carry on. Keep going. Not wet enough. Just completely taking a rip out of them. And then, he God provides and sets fire to Elijah's thing. Elijah then goes crazy
Hmm.
and slaughters them all, but that's Elijah, that guy. Anyway, but then
Oh
but
man.
so even after he's seen that, even after
Hmm.
he's seen God set fire to a pile of wood in a pool of water, the queen says, I'm going to kill you. And then he goes, oh no, I didn't think that was going to happen. And then he runs away
Hmm.
screaming. Like, you idiot. You've got God on your side. Why are you freaking out? Anyway, he goes into the desert.
Right.
He hides under a tree. He goes to sleep. He wakes up. He eats cake provided by an angel 3 or 4 times. And then, like, the last time, the angel said, the time before last, the angel says, eat up because you're going to need it. And then the last time he wakes up, he gets sent into the desert. And then he sees God in the still small voice. And I think of that as the reality of humanity, and and also the pattern of the faithful life, the religious life, which
Hmm.
is, you know, the reality of humanity is we can see God provide for us and freak out
Hmm.
regardless of it when something scary happens. We're human.
Hmm.
But then the proper reaction to that is to go into a desert place away from everything,
Mm-hmm.
retreat, and rest in the Lord, he falls asleep.
Mm-hmm.
He wakes
Mm-hmm.
up and he consumes bread from heaven, the Eucharist, go to Mass. And
Mm-hmm.
then you go back to resting in the Lord and you follow this pattern. And then one day God's going to say, you better take this Eucharist really seriously because I got a plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not, you know, you know, all, fuzzy rainbows. It's going to the desert and I'll meet
Mm-hmm.
you there. And it's everything that you could possibly ever want. But it's going to cost
Mm-hmm.
you. But like, you won't feel the cost. Like having kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Matt
Mm-hmm.
Kernan says, "Why are you so nice to people that like are horrible to you? Nobody would want the way that your
Mm-hmm.
kids treat you. But it's the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Having kids is the best thing that could ever happen to you. It's also the hardest thing that can ever happen to you.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
but like that's kind of what makes it the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I suppose it's like a symptom of the fall.
Yes.
We will have to till the land. Beforehand, we didn't have to till it, but it was going to work. But now we do. But in doing so, we get to experience something of God. We get to
Mm-hmm.
participate in His creation through giving birth. We get to participate in His sacrifice through raising the children, or maybe infertility, as we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to walk this life with Him.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. It's interesting you say that because I had it on my heart earlier. I was thinking about, so there are so many people who are like, well, so many bad things happen. Like there's no way a God would let this happen. And I feel like people really forget we are separated from him, right? Like this goes back to the beginning when Eve, and you know what I mean? Like that, this is why we suffer. But I feel like we live in a world where we forget how beautiful it is to suffer. And I'm not saying that perhaps raising children is a form of suffering. I think we can suffer mentally because we have to question, is this right? Is this wrong? I had a bad reaction today. How do I say I'm sorry to a child who doesn't understand my emotional outburst, right? Because I have them. And I've learned, like, I grew up in a household where it was like, get over it, get over it. I don't want my children to just get over it. I want them to have an understanding. And I feel like that's where, like, the grace of God comes in when you try to keep him so close, is like, God, help me fix this. Like, how do I, um, you know, relate or use this suffering in such a way where I can mend things, because that's what Jesus did. He suffered and died for us to mend us so we would have a path back to God. And so, despite things being broken, despite the world being in the state it is, it's always going to be that way because we are apart from God. But that doesn't mean he's abandoned us, right?
Right.
Um, so I just remember someone saying to me, like, well, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, I just don't know how you can't,
Mm. Mm.
because I really do try to see those moments. And it's funny, just bringing up parenthood in general, like when I look at my children, even if it's a tantrum or whatever it is, like in those beautiful moments, in those easy moments, like that's when you're like, this is so worth it. Like, how could my heart is exploding for joy, and it's such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I feel like those moments can be taken for granted too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah, it's
anyway.
we can be you talk about, like you're saying, parenting is suffering, and although you don't want to say that necessarily,
Mm,
and I think you get to decide what counts as suffering. You get to you get to decide what you can bear. Like going to the gym is technically suffering. Going for a run is suffering. You're putting your body through tremendous strain, but it's beneficial. I was talking to someone, I always have this conversation at work, we talk about our kids, and then, you know, usually someone comes up with something saying, you're not selling it to me, you're making it look really horrible, I don't want to be a parent. And I was like, look, I'm not not trying to sell it to you, but B, you're a nurse, right? Yeah. So you did a degree, right? Yeah. Would you recommend that as an enjoyable experience? No. You've also most of them have like further study as well. So and you went on and did further study, did you? Oh yeah. So and that was pleasant, was it? No, but now you've got a
Right.
job that you enjoy doing, right? Okay.
Hmm.
Parenting's better than that. It's also harder
It
than
is.
that. So
Hmm.
we're willing to go through certain things and maybe acknowledge that the suffering, have a bit of complaining, a bit of gnashing of teeth, and we're just be able to, but we can accept it. But like
Hmm.
the world's teaching is nowadays that that's only acceptable when it's like careerism. Yeah,
A hundred percent.
of course sacrifice your family for a higher pay. Of course,
Hmm.
sacrifice your friendship and mental health for a degree. But if you want kids, oh no, the strain on your body. you know,
Oh.
or like and again, like when you're talking to people about health and fitness, I heard recently
Hmm.
they was talking about there's a singer and she recently just blown up and she's doing really well. And then there was an article that was like, yeah, but she had to go through a real transformation. She had to lose like I don't know if it was like 20 pounds. I'm bad at remembering numbers, but like she looks good now. She doesn't look unhealthy. She
Hmm.
didn't look particularly unhealthy beforehand, but she's trimmed right down. She obviously lost a bunch of weight, and she looks good. And it's like, yeah, but she had to do that to become successful. Like, it's just losing a bit of weight. I mean, unless you did it through some sort of like bulimia or something, it's okay. It's okay, but it's hard.
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
what level you get to choose what counts as suffering, you know? And so, parenting, you could argue is suffering. But you can say, yeah, but that's okay. A degree is suffering. Fitness is suffering, but it's okay.
Do you think, though, that we're living in a time where people want the easy way out for everything? Because as someone who, like, for example, who had an eating disorder and now, like, I'm a mom, I had three kids, my body's changed a lot. Like, I'm not going to go on a medication so that I can suppress my appetite because that's easy. And
Right.
that's
Yeah. Yep.
okay if that's the choice, I guess for you, but I'm like, but then that kind of applies to everything. Well, I'm just going to do this because it's easy. Like, I'm going to do that because it's easy. Or, is that like harsh for me to say? Perhaps. I mean, but I think that's where like like maybe the fire that God like has put in me to be so, I don't know. I'm very like, I can be abrasive at times in my speech. And I think that's why like I've really honed it like or reeled it in on social media. Like I don't go on stories too much because I feel like I could say things and it's like, okay, well, that's kind of like off color for me. And it's not that it's off color, but I think I just hold people to a higher standard, especially like when we're of the faith, when I need to be more gentle and merciful like Jesus. But at the same time, just getting back into health and fitness, like, yes, someone has to work hard. We have to work hard to maintain our bodies today because we're not building pyramids. We're not doing these like we're not doing physically hard work. Yes, okay, in the ER, on the floor, we're lifting people, we're doing things like that, but like we're not doing it all day. Okay, in the ER maybe. But like, it's for me it's a hard thing to grasp because the way I look at my life is like, yes, I have suffered things but they pass. And I feel like that's the problem is people don't perhaps want the hard things because they don't know how long it's going to last. But why, like, if God doesn't give us more than we can handle, why can't you even handle what he might give you? I don't, do you know what?
I think life has become harder because it's become easier.
Oh, for sure.
So we have the like one thing, one criticism I often hear people talk about going to the gym is actually a better way of building muscle and being fit is, manual labor. So you should, going to the gym is, a near occasion of sin because women typically wear, really tight clothes. That's, it's not a great argument, but then it's like, okay, fine, go quit your job as an engineer in an office building and go and be a farmer. Sure, just everyone be a farmer. And so, in Jesus' time, medieval times, maybe there was more physical labor. There was a time where
Right.
if you wanted to eat, you had to grow it, you had to hunt it, and so
You had
life was harder.
to build things.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so life was harder. You needed to
Yeah.
be physically able, otherwise you would die. If you were obese and lethargic, then that's it. You're over. So,
Yeah.
but then, and we're finding this in contemporary living, that even like the fact that food was harder to chew meant that we had larger mouths, which means we had better respiratory.
Mm-hmm.
We had better respiration, so we could breathe better. So we were healthier, and life has gotten easier, which is good in the sense that we don't have to worry about a saber-toothed tiger coming and ripping us to shreds. It's good that we don't have to worry about dying of exposure, But like
Mm-hmm.
now it's become harder because now we we have the necessity of some physical activity. We have
Mm-hmm.
to be physically able, but
Mm-hmm.
we also have McDonald's and Burger King and Carl's Jr. and all these fast food restaurants all down the main streets of every road you walk on. And so, like, there's a lot more temptation. But then we also have, going to the gym is like, okay, now we've got the vanity problem because there's mirrors everywhere, which have a functional purpose, but they
Mm-hmm.
also, and so, like, we have to be, it's harder to be physically fit and, well, I mean, I won't down in this hill, but it's harder to be physically fit and, virtuous because you've got to go into these scenarios where it's harder to be virtuous in order to be physically fit. You have to
Mm.
not eat bad food. You have to not, lust in the gym. You have to not become obsessed with how you look, and it's if there's no mirrors, you can't be obsessed with how you look. And
Right.
if there is no fast food restaurants, you can't eat cheeseburgers every day. Um,
Right.
and so it is harder in that sense. But like I think there is a sweet spot because I'm seeing a lot online nowadays where people are like, okay, sure, don't eat badly, eat really well, and there is a diet for that, and mainly you have to cook it yourself. But if you're on holiday and you don't have a kitchen, just eat the healthiest fast food you can get because that's all you can get. And so like we've gone from optimize to sub-optimize because it's actually not that bad. Let's just go for
Right.
next to optimal. you know,
Right.
but like yeah. So I think you were asking, do people just want the easy way out?
Mm.
And I think we've always I think that's just a human condition. We've always wanted the
Yeah.
easy way out, and the evidence is for that is the fact that there is an easy option available because we wouldn't be searching for it if we
Right.
didn't want it, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like we also have to bear in mind that actions have consequences. There
Mm-hmm.
is no free free ride. Like there was,
Yes.
they were talking on Joe Rogan about, and I don't know the veracity of the statement. They were talking about, there's this guy talking about how nicotine's really good for you, and actually, it's healthy to smoke if you have the right diet. But it was funny because he was talking to a comedian, and the comedian had recently just had a heart attack and survived, and he said, "Yeah, okay, that's cool, but if I'd had the right diet, I wouldn't have had a heart attack. So I'm not going to start smoking because nicotine's good for you." you know. And so like
Right.
you've
Right.
got to It's like, okay, sure, okay. Do you want to smoke so bad that you're willing to change your whole life? Do you want to? Do you want
Mm.
everything you eat now? Stop eating that. Find new recipes. Go buy those new ingredients and learn these new meals. And yeah, sure, just so you can smoke. you know, or maybe not, you know, just have the horrible taste of Nicorette gum or whatever it is. But yeah, so like I think in making life easier, it's actually become harder. But
Mm-hmm.
the difficulty is packaged differently,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yes.
hidden. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can have a bad diet your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and for the majority of your life, it's not been a problem. You've
Right.
just slowly done less and less. And pardon me, one thing that's crazy is I'll see 90-year-olds come into the ED, walking around sharp as a tack, you know,
Yes.
completely able-bodied. I'll see 50-year-olds come in on oxygen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're unable to move. They've got like really bad gout. They've got really bad hypertension, COPD,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't move. In their 50, and there's like a guy 40 years older than him, and he's never had a doctor's appointment in his life. So his health history is non-existent, and now he's on a cardiac monitor because he's 96 and his heart's been beating for 96 years constantly. And it's like, yeah, it's a bit iffy now, you know. We had this one
Right.
lady, and she spent 6 months in Italy, 6 months in New Zealand, and she'd done that for the last 40 years of her life, and so she had no doctor's appointments because she said, I never felt sick, so I never went to see the doctors. So she's not on any regular
Right.
medication, and her heart rate was over 200. And she was just walking around. I'm like, sit down. But so we get to choose our life, but like the effects of an easier life is a shorter life, but a slower effect. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna see the impact of it till much later.
Right.
I go around at work sometimes and I say, so when you're 80, what medications are you going to be on? If you had to guess, you know, and people are like, yeah, because we see them come in, you know, it's
Right.
like everyone's on some sort of beta blocker, or it's like, oh yeah, I probably have heart problems, or like, probably diabetes, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's just that, just
Right.
trying to promote that awareness of like, you know, especially as nurses, doing shift work's not healthy.
No, it's hard.
And so it's going to have a negative effect on your life. But yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
the easy way out, like with the GLP-1s and stuff, or like with you know, anything, any like quick fix.
Well, so it's interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just
And I'll
saying,
tell you.
just finish that point. With any quick fix, there is a price you're paying, and you just have to be aware of
Mm-hmm.
that. It's like, okay, actually, I'm okay with taking like 14 tablets a day when I'm in my 60s. If you're okay with that, then that sucks. You know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, as my parents are in their 70s and my father's on a synthroid, but I think he's like I just need a med. And I'm like, okay, sure. Your
Yeah, yeah.
thyroid is not okay. But it's funny. Okay, so I a couple things like kind of looping and all that thinking. I recently read Slowing Down to the Speed of Joy by Matthew Kelly. And at the end of the book, he said he's sitting down next to a priest and he asked the priest like, so 25 years of confession, like what in the like what's that like? You know, when the priest is like, you know, the number one thing that nobody confesses is greed. And that got me thinking,
Wow.
like, when did we become so greedy and like why? And then I started thinking about the family and like how has the enemy infiltrated this? And I started, at least for us, I know back in like I think it was 1988 or 1983 maybe, it's like somewhere in that time, Massachusetts made the blue law where you could open your stores on Sundays, right? And so for me, I feel like of course, like history has had its history, but when I look at that pivotal moment, like, you know, I'm 40 years old, I was born in the 80s, like, I don't know truly a life where stores couldn't be open on Sundays, right? And of
Mm,
course, back then it was like, well, everyone got paid time and a half, and you could only be open like these certain hours, or you had to open at noon or whatever. But the more I think about the world and the in changing and greed and how it got easier and everyone looking for a quick fix, well, there you go. Take away one day of rest, make more money, then it's the opportunities there for everybody. But then, like, when does it end?
Mm, mm.
Like, it'll be easier if I have more money. Will it? Like, I think these are thoughts that I have too. It would just be easier if,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
why?
yeah.
Um,
That's a
you
really
know,
cool one. Yeah.
and I was thinking about that, and I actually thought to myself, like, when in my life have I been greedy? Like, God has given me all these things, and we've had things come up, and I'm like, well, no, now I want justice. For something, something that needed to be fixed because we bought new, right? And
Mm,
so I'm like, when am I being greedy? Like, when is it enough to stop and say, like, enough? Like, nothing is perfect. We are not perfect. Things on like it's not perfect. So when am I getting greedy? So that for me like goes hand in hand. Like, why can't this be easier and why can't I have more?
mm. That's really cool.
And like those are the things that kind of like have crossed my mind recently. Um and I feel like
Mm. Well,
I'm like there's more to this, but
it
yeah,
ca-
it's like one of those things where like it kind of changed the whole trajectory of the world because when can we stop working and maybe like circling back into like creating and having to be on every day like it's in every facet of our life. Like there are no days off, like the gym, no days off, eating healthy,
mm.
no days off, no
Yeah,
cheat days,
yeah.
ba ba ba. Like, no, no, no. It's like, when do we stop and say yes to leisure, which Matthew Kelly talks about in his book? Like, when do we say like, no, when do we set those boundaries? And that's something I've gotten better at in motherhood with my children. Like, my children don't need to be in a car for 5 hours a day. So I homeschool because like the
Beautiful.
kids are young and like I need to, I don't want them to know this busyness of like getting up in the morning, rush to school, coming home because I'm sick, and then I can't work
Mm,
because if
mm.
they get sick, I have to pay for childcare. So like really all of these decisions I've made, and I feel like at sometimes I felt like, well, it's just selfish because I want to be able to go to Italy whenever I want to see my parents. And so I don't want to answer to a school, but then I have to still answer to my husband, is it
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Whatever. But like all joking aside, where can we find peace in our life to say, okay, these could be the possible effects of wanting too much
Mm.
or doing too much. I mean, I gave up lifting weights for Lent because I was so irate all the time and I couldn't figure out why. And I
Got
literally was
testosterone or
praying
something.
like, God, like, perhaps. I mean, because there's this, I've heard this lately too, like women should not look like men. Like you should not be weightlifting
Okay.
like a man. Okay. And like that is true. Like I should not be walking around with a six pack and like, I shouldn't because my body was created perfectly for different reasons. Like I bore children. Like that
Right,
is,
right.
you know.
Mm.
And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there are so many things now in our face in the health space too that are overlooked because it's like you should do this, but it's like who specifically? Because we are all made individually. Our DNA is not the same. I am going to respond differently to a supplement or medication than you are.
Mm.
I'm going to respond differently. And like that idea is also out the window.
Right, yeah. That's so cool. There's so much there.
Sorry.
Initially, bring you back to, so we were talking, you mentioned the greed thing.
Yeah, agreed.
And mate, I
Mm.
just, I realized I need to go and confession more. I can give better confessions now. Thanks for that. But
You're
like,
welcome.
yeah, I guess because we don't think about greed because it's kind of like an internal thing, isn't it? You can't do a greed. Greed
No.
is a like you can kill someone. That's a thing you did. You can watch porn. That's a thing you did.
Right.
Um, but like the greed is the underlying thing because like the stealing. I mean, maybe that's greed, but like you can logic it away. It's like, no, I needed bread for my family, so I stole. It's like, yeah, do you need that much though? It's always the cherry on the cake. It's like, right, you had the birthday cake. You didn't need the cherry on top. You didn't need it because everything
Right.
everything was giving it, because like my brother-in-law runs a business, and
Mm-hmm.
you know they work, they're open on a Sunday, but it's out of necessity because
Right.
he tried not doing it, and
Right.
he's got to pay bills in order to run. He's got to pay customers, and the fact of the matter is, people don't use his business on Mondays. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're like, it's like, okay, I'll just open on
Yeah.
Mondays and not Sundays. Like, well, we don't earn money on Mondays, so it's like what? It's like it's taking my biggest money making day, and not making it, and then not making any money the next day either. And so
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, so it's out of a necessity, and that's possible,
Mm-hmm.
because the culture is the way it is.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so bring that greed is like, actually no. Greed is, this might hit a nerve of parents. I want to take time for myself. I want time for me. It's like, yeah, okay, you need to recharge. You need to count to 10 before you discipline your children, maybe. You need to
Mm-hmm.
do certain things.
Right.
You don't need to stay up till midnight on your phone.
Right. Oh,
And
totally.
so that would be a subtle greed. It's like, and like, it's like this dissatisfaction. I'm not satisfied. Well, satisfaction is not a virtue, so it's okay. Greed, and the greed is like, get satisfaction. Just get to a point where you're satisfied, and then you can be at peace, and then and you can come up with all these great arguments as to why it's worthwhile. But greed is
Mm-hmm.
just like insidious kind of underlying thing, and it's really beautiful that you brought it up, and like, thank you to Matthew Kelly for giving you that insight,
Mm-hmm.
because now, now that's definitely something I can reflect on. And you mentioned earlier, I don't want to be a millionaire, I just don't want to be in debt. And that's, it's, to me it sounds like it's quite a healthy perspective of,
Mm.
I don't, and like, I think your desire to make sure you can get to Italy is perfectly reasonable. I would also like to make sure I can get to Italy regularly. But like, for you, it's because your family's there, right? So it's not
Right.
just,
Yes.
it's for
Yeah.
me. For me, it would be greed. I just want to make sure I can get to Italy regularly.
Right.
But like,
Right.
um, for you, it's honoring your mother and father. It's, having that, human element of staying connected to your upbringing, your life. So yeah, I think that the greed element is it's something that it's gonna hit a nerve with people, because it's such a real uh, it's such a real thing. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's being greedy, and no one's realizing it.
Well, and it's funny, even talking about it now, like I remember when we came home from Italy and I had gone through my miscarriage, which was a molar pregnancy. And I remember like I would, and I don't know if it was hormonal, but it definitely was like a sense of greed. Like I remember, so my husband went to mass every day, or not every day, went to mass every Sunday while we were away. And I thought that was really beautiful. And I remember like we were having a conversation one night and it was, I was saying I wanted more. Like it was like, I want us to do, I want this and da 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 da. And like it came from such a, like a place of greed where like he turned to me and he was like, when is it enough? Like, when am I enough? And so I don't
Wow.
know too, like if that puts like a greed can put such a weight on our relationships with our spouse. Like, you're not doing enough. I'm doing too much. You're doing too much. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing enough. Like, because it's true. Like, I'm basically a stay-at-home mom. Like, I have per diem jobs, and that's a whole other thing. I'm doing the content creation thing and I am trying and it is for the greater good, but part of it is for me too to see where the success might lead. And if I can give it a time frame and say, okay, like I'm not going to post 3 times a day anymore, like I need to now be creative in other ways and do it with my family completely and not, be tied to this so much because maybe this is not exactly how God is calling me to be creative anymore. So be
Mm.
it. But I really don't think that it's spoken enough between married couples like, hey, you do work really hard, and I have been kind of greedy because I think I deserve more, even though, you're sitting at a desk. Like, we're all five of us are home all day long,
Mm,
and that can be
that's
heavy
beautiful.
too. And it kind of goes back to, like, everyone, this is how life used to be. We all used to be home together. It wasn't until the world, like, all the e-commerce, like all of these things where men went to work, and, then women went to work, and then it was all these, and we were all divided, right? So, like, who was raising who? When you look at it, and now we've kind of come back a little bit where people are working from home, and
Mm,
like that's easier, right? But we don't even know how to function in that capacity because of greed, because, well, I need my time, and I need you to get out of the house, or I need to be left alone, or I need.
mm,
So it's like, it's that, where is that balance? And I truly believe that's where we find it in our faith.
yeah.
That's where we turn to God and say, where do you want us? Like, what, how do you want us to function for you here? And that is something that is lacking in my life for sure, because we're still finding our footing. And, like, through the grace of God, maybe that's why we're having this conversation, so I can say, like, I can recognize the greed in myself,
Wow.
and, like, how can we use this to build upon our marriage, upon, like, our relationship with our children,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know
Because yeah, I think also greed is one of those things that, whereas it doesn't have a like direct physical manifestation, like
mhm
not everyone has a basement filled with like treasures that they know never look at,
mhm
that like a dragon hiding on top of them all. Um, whereas it doesn't have a physical manifestation in that way, like a direct one. It does come out. It's one of those
yes.
things of, they talk about like, a beautiful person can be ugly, and it's
Mhm
that thing of like, when I speak to this person, I don't know what it is, but I don't leave feeling good, and
mhm
I can't put my finger on what it is, but there's something
mhm
about them that's not right, and it's possibly, I'm not gonna, so it's one of the things it could be is actually, that person is just taking, taking, taking. It's like I want, I
right.
want, I want, and that's a greed. It's like they're taking
Yes.
your time, they're taking your energy, they're taking. So it's not a case of let's hang out and have a conversation and it's mutual.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
waiting for you to stop talking so I can tell you my story, or and like the stories are good, and so you're like, oh, that was an entertaining story, and so I heard a communication specialist saying you everyone has bad conversations because actually what's happening is it's two monologues, and
Mhm.
there's three questions you can ask to make sure you're actually having a conversation, and you'll have way better connections. And it's after someone tells a story, you ask them three questions about whatever that story was, and then
Mm.
that's a dialogue. And like I was
Right.
like, oh wow, really called out. I'm a podcaster. Do I really do that? Uh, and yeah, so yeah, greed is one of those. It sits beneath the surface, so you can't see it. But it's like the
Mhm.
wind. You can't see the wind, but the leaves are blowing. The trees are
Right.
moving, and it's not the tree that's alive. It's animated by something else, and
Mhm.
maybe greed animates a part. Well, we allow it to animate a part of us, but also when that happens, that's so painful to remove because it's like it's like a pride of like the reason that we are greedy in those scenarios is because we're trying to take something we feel we need. Like we've convinced ourselves, no, I need time to myself. So you guys go away, and
Right. Yeah.
like I need to be heard because I don't usually get heard. So I'm gonna make myself heard, and it's like I'm taking, so like,
Right.
I need more money because then I can do these extra things. So I'm gonna take that money, and so like say, all right, now you've realized that that's a greed. Stop doing it. Ooh, I still feel like I need it though because it's addressing a
Right.
wound.
Right. And how do we like, how do we let go? And that's where the gift of surrender comes in, right?
Mm,
Like, that's where you really have to surrender and say, please don't make this who I am, but let you come through me, right? Like less of me, more of him, right? And that's, I'm not saying I have an easy time of letting go of things, but I know like when our conversation's done, I'm gonna go to my husband and be like, I am sorry for the times that I have wanted more from you when this is what God has, right? Like that's like where we have to have the humility, that's part of, again, part of the faith. And when you look at the big picture, like, do I need to go to Italy for 2 months? No, I should, where, if I look at my finances, if I look at the time my husband has off, like, you know, should I stay there with the kids and not, have the kids away from their like all of these things, right? Like, what is the big picture here and who am I truly satisfying? It's really for me. Yes, I love to be around my parents, but then that comes into the whole like leave and cleave thing too. And that's another like struggle I have. I grew up away from my parents for such a long time because of skating that I'm like, I need to get those years back. And there it is again. But if I look at the years and look back at them, they were really beautiful, faith-filled years where I grew um, in ways that I wouldn't have had I had a traditional upbringing of going to a normal high school and, playing on the high school soccer team. So I think that if people were able to stop and reflect and say, where am I afraid to suffer? What am I afraid to let go of? And how can I hand this to Jesus and feel at peace and know that I can surrender and trust in him? It would feel a lot lighter because that's what we're
Yeah.
told too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it also takes a lot of responsibility off you. It's like,
Hmm.
I'm going to heal this wound. It's like, no, I'll do it for you. Oh, okay. I don't need to
Right,
work out how I'm going to get this need met. It's going to be met. Or not, and that's okay. you know?
right, right. I don't know
Mm,
if I know, just thinking about nursing too, like when I became a nurse, everyone's like, that's great. You're going to make so much money. And I'm like, well, okay, girl, first, I can't work full time.
right.
So there's that, right? That's different because at that point, had a child and all those things. And then I got pregnant again, whatever, whatever, all those things. But I'll always have a job. But I never got into nursing because for the money. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good career, right? It's a good career. But the amount of times I've been able to encounter Jesus in my work
Yeah.
has been unbelievable. To have someone ask you a question and say, did, was this right? Do you think this is why? Or, even like other friends and staff, um, coworkers and colleagues and doctors, like I've made really beautiful connections with people.
Hmm.
And so, the number one reason why I became a nurse is because I love people, because you can meet Jesus in everyone. And I had recently just read, I think it was, what is it, G.K. Chesterton
Hmm.
said that the beautiful concept of Beauty and the Beast is that what you need to understand is that you need to love someone in order for them to be lovable. So if like they've never felt love, so when you find these patients that have never felt love, how can they be lovable when they don't know what it feels like? So that might be your calling to love them.
Yeah.
And what better way to love people than at the bedside, caring for them at their most vulnerable and even in the emergency room because you're caring for a whole family essentially, or you're caring for someone who has no family and so you're that person there.
Yeah.
And again, yes, it can be lucrative for people, but that's that whole me thing where
Mm.
like when can we turn our career or a job um into where can I meet Christ?
Yeah. We've just been, well, there's two things. Like, the funny thing was, is like, I was a Catholic chaplain before I became a nurse. And then when I decided to become a nurse, I was like, brilliant, went to university, did a degree, started working. And I was like, wow, this doesn't pay great. It's like life's expensive. And I was like, I didn't even think about the money. And then I was like, okay, how do we make more money? It's like, oh wow, it caps at a certain level. Oh my gosh. you know,
Yes.
and like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because, and we have this issue in the profession. If it's like, it's not a job, it's a calling.
It
And,
is.
you know, I guess it's proof to the fact that God calls us all in spite of your religious preferences, because
Yes.
there are atheists that are nurses and they are doing this
Mm-hmm.
vocational work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, like, there's that evidence there, but like we've just we've there's an argument that you can't get paid enough to do this job because
No.
of what it requires. But there's also the problem that we don't do it for. No one does it for the pay. No one says,
No.
I'm going to be a nurse because I'm going to be rich. I mean, I'm sure there are ways of becoming rich as a nurse. You can raise to senior ranks, but then you're no longer a nurse. You're a manager that has nursing experience.
Right.
And
It's definitely not at the bedside.
yeah, yeah,
It's definitely not the bedside.
and yeah. There's we've just gone through this with our government of like pay equity in nursing,
Mm.
and it's been going on for years, mate. It's finally come to a really bad conclusion where we're not getting a great deal, but there's also a sigh of relief of we're no longer talking about it.
Mm.
But like my question as it was coming to this last bargaining is like, why are we what are we arguing for? What is the end result? And like no one had an answer. Like we'd been, I
Right.
feel like we'd been fighting for so long. We were just saying the same things. And when it comes to a profession like nursing, it's similar to a profession like parenthood. A profession. It's similar, like it's a profession. Screw. Um, um, it's a calling. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for everybody, but you're doing what you want to do, and people will abuse that. And like I feel like sometimes that happens because like the problems we have here with nursing are the same problems that are in the States, they're in Australia, they're in the UK. To varying degrees. It's every
Oh,
nurse has
100%.
every nurse has the same problems. And so like it's not just like, so like what are we asking for? Because like I said, I don't think you can get paid enough. But like, what do you need in order to do the thing that you love?
Mm-hmm.
And we're coming back to that greed thing. It's like, what do I actually need? Because if I got paid, $1 million to do this, but we were still short staffed, if like I still got, verbally and physically abused by patients, but I got $1 million, I wouldn't sleep any better because night shifts are night shifts, so
Right. Right.
then
Right.
like, okay, there's that discernment within us, and we see that, we can see that in our parenthood, we can see that in our 9 to 5s, like, what do I need in order to do the thing that I feel called to be doing, whether it's nursing, accountancy, parenthood, gym influencer, whatever. What do I need?
Mm.
And that tackles that greed element, but like it's something, and it's painful because in denying ourselves, in surrendering to God in this element, it feels like it's costing us, but it's costing us for an insidious thing that's a lie,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really powerful and really difficult to deal with.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm.
The other element that you were talking about is you started touching on health and fitness, and I know that's a big
Mm-hmm.
part of what you do, and something that I am very interested in, because I don't think it's really been explored enough, is women's health,
Mm-hmm.
because women biologically are different, and they
Mm-hmm.
have a very different set of needs to blokes. I always
Mm-hmm.
say that, in the labs when they're dissecting rats, you're only dissecting males because we're expendable. We can make more males. But if we
Oh
don't have
man.
females, we can't make any more males.
Yep.
And so
Mm-hmm.
there is, the biology's simple. It runs easy. It's a basic operating system. But like with
Mm-hmm.
women, it's like, okay, we need to create an operating system that can create other operating systems so that we can further the, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, the hormonal imbalances, you know, from a young age, heading into adolescence with menstruation,
Mm-hmm.
going from that into childbearing, going from that into menopause. I feel like there's such a area here that's not really explored, and you said that women's bodies aren't like men's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Women shouldn't look like men. Do you want to talk a bit more into that? I'm like, what do you mean by that? And what your solutions are to this perspective.
So I think over, you know, since the 70s, really, right? Like with the implementation of birth control to be on birth control, and being told, oh, well, even when I was 16, like, oh, you're having heavier cycles and like all these things, and like you should go on the pill. But I don't think people realize how much it really messes up your body or it
Mm.
messes up a woman's body, right? And so, unfortunately, even wrapping it into the infertility piece, it was like, well, here, we don't want you to be fertile now, but then you're not even going to be able to be fertile later. But as far as like the right now in the health space, women want to be strong, right? I mean, millennia ago, our ancestors were like literally carrying jugs of water on their head. They were carrying babies on them. They were walking everywhere. They were making food. Like everything was done in a physical manner, right? It wasn't easy. And so, yes, women should be strong also just for the sake of like our bones, right? But I think that there's this misconception right now where like, I need to go and like lift as heavy as the men. I need to bench press. I need to squat. I need to deadlift, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, I'm just looking to like do, maybe like my 50-pound, like deadlift, like whatever. I don't even
Mm.
know the terms completely because, I follow the whatever's on the screen, but
Yeah.
I'm not looking to like become a bodybuilder. But I feel like that's kind of what's happening in the health space is that we're
Mm.
telling women
True.
like, no, lift heavy and it's better for you. But the truth is that's going to mess up your hormones too. And I'm a victim of that,
Okay.
right? Women are supposed to have a certain amount of fat to get pregnant. They're supposed to have it around like their lower abdomen and their hips in order to maintain healthy hormone balance.
Mm.
And I think we've gone from so many extremes that again, this is where I talk about like balance and surrender. Like at what point can we say like it is okay to be like a little soft. It is okay to not be completely cut. It is like you want to be healthy. I enjoy going for runs. I enjoy lifting my weights, but like lifting weights 6 days a week as a woman, that's not good. Um, and I think, wanting to attain this goal of lifting as much as a man, like
Right. Yeah.
again, like why do we want to why I am different from you on purpose, like my body does very different things than yours. And so even getting back into hormones and cycles, um there there's a complete divide, right? Like a male has a 1 day cycle, women have anywhere from 25 to 30. And so how do you kind of let a female's body respond to the current elements? Well, for one, in the different phases of the cycle, you can fast at certain times. Like from the start of your cycle to day 10, you can fast up to 24 to 73 hours. Like you're not just going to do it right away if you've never fasted before. but that's a prime time for your hormones and for you to kind of adjust your weight if you want,
Mm,
if that's something you're looking to do. But from day like 10 to 16, you need to be eating nutrient dense food. You should be eating nutrient dense all the time, but that's where, like, in those 10 days, the first 10, you can really restrict your caloric intake. And there's a doctor that actually has written the book, and now, of course, um, it has escaped me, but it's from the book called Fasting Like a Girl. And it really explains why women should exercise differently during certain times. Like, women should actually be doing full body workouts regularly, and Pilates, and
right.
walking and jogging. Like, it shouldn't be intense all the time, hit and heavy weights. And it's just simplicity gets lost because we're living in a time where everything is go big or go home.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you can get lost in the details. But yeah, I think
Hmm.
again, it comes back to this like authentic posting online, because
Yes.
where do
Yeah.
people get these ideas from? But I think
Hmm.
it's really interesting, like what you were saying about, obviously women have these different phases, and that can directly affect your performance. It can
Hmm.
affect your fitness levels.
Hmm.
Um, how do you think it? Because like, well, let's do things. Let's keep on the front first. There is a case of like we have to accept the lot we've been given. Look, the set
Hmm.
of cards we've been dealt,
Yes.
and then there's an element of working out what is, quote unquote optimal for you.
Hmm.
What is the correct way of living in accordance with the life that you've been given, and
Hmm.
then it's just a case of doing it every day, or like, you know doing it day by day.
Hmm.
And how do you how do you manage that? Because as like since since March, I've been like on the back foot. Like my mum came over from the UK, and instead of adjusting, allowing her to adjust to my time schedule, I adjusted to her time schedule, which meant I was waking up later and I was going to bed later, and it just wrecked me. And
Hmm.
then the tour and getting sick and da 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 da. And so,
Right.
like beforehand, I'm a wake up at 4 a.m., go to the gym, then do the rest of your day, go to bed about 9 o'clock. Whereas if I did that whilst my mum was here, I'd probably see her for about 4 hours every
Hmm.
day. So I was like, okay, I need to change it up. It wasn't that dramatic, but
Hmm.
now I'm in a place where I've been on the back foot for maybe a few months, trying to get back on the right foot. And there is, how do you? Because I imagine, you were talking about you've got the different phases of your cycle over like 30 days.
Hmm.
You're in and out of this week to week. You have a really
Hmm.
great week, and then the next week you feel like crap, and then like it's not as simple as like for me. I'm like, if I wake up at 4 a.m. and go to bed at 9 p.m. every night, perfect, and
Hmm.
I can just do that for the rest of my life. I don't need to worry about
Right.
it. you know, it's like,
Hmm.
so just do that, and then just go to the gym, lift heavy, eat nutrient dense food. Problem solved. The only problem I have is monotony now. It's going to be the same for the rest of my life. In your situation, you know, it's like, you know, you've got like the phases of your cycle, luteal, follicular, and all that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
this is the thing that I it boggles my mind that people are so blasé with hormones. It's like, oh, just take this tablet. It's just got hormones in it, which you have in your body anyway. It's like women know this
Right.
intimately. Women know this
Hmm.
intimately. Hormones change everything. you know, Depending what
Everything.
phase of your cycle you're in, depends how you're going to
Hmm.
interact with the world, depends how you're going to think about yourself, depends on what you're going to feel like eating, depends on how
Hmm.
active you're going to feel. And now you're just saying,
Hmm.
just take a hormone. It just does a thing that your body
Right.
already does, you know.
Right.
So how do you navigate your faith life, your health life in a reality where you're changing from week to week everything?
So big shout out to my husband because you need that support, especially like, okay, if we wait, first of all, I started waking up with the kids. I couldn't do the early, as much as I'm like, I need to wake up at 5, and maybe that's something God's calling me to. Like, I need to suffer there. Like, I need to just wake up and do the things. But honestly, like, if I don't get rest, I'm not good to anybody.
Right.
Right? Like that's the truth. And, between homeschooling and the kids and fitness, it's like when the morning is there, we're like, all right, up, the kids get breakfast, someone's going for a run, and then someone's working out after. Like it's back to back generally. And if that doesn't happen, then I usually try to stagger a workout sometime in between like dinner or after dinner, like in between, before dinner or after dinner, if time allows, because we have activities too. But, again, like communication is a huge factor. And I feel like sometimes women think like, well, my husband should know this. And like right? Like that's like a thing we do. Like you should just know, like, can't you just tell? Like I'm telling you, tell about, whatever. And it's like, no, I need to say like, listen, I'm really having like a hard day, or like, I don't want to work out today. I don't need to work out today. Or I know like rest is more important than lifting weights for 30 minutes. And I strive to communicate that effectively because my husband and I actually met running marathons.
All right.
And so like fitness is very important, and that's something we kind of instilled in our kids too. Like we don't care if you're the best athlete, you don't even have to play a sport, but you need to be active, right? We need to go out and ride bikes, we need to go for a jog, we need to go for a walk, we need to play, basketball outside, rollerblade, like anything we can do to like make ourselves physical, to get that exercise and to get that energy out, like that's important. And so for me specifically, I just know that because I grew up as a competitive figure skater, my body thrives in that kind of stress of
Right.
lifting appropriately, getting the right amount of cardio. And if I go more than 3 days without like a walk or something, like I walk with a weighted vest now
Right.
and I love it. And that's something I need because if not, again, like everyone else suffers because it's harder for me to maintain composure if I'm not meeting those needs that are important, right? Like they are aligned very much in faith. We're not talking about like agreed, like I need this so I can be fit so I can look good. No, I need this because it's important for me to be around long enough with my children, right? So that I can be healthy for them because I want to be running with them. I want to keep up with them. I've always wanted that in my life. And I think it's hard. And sometimes we realize it too late. Like I should have treated my body better. I should have. And again, I'm not saying you have to go big or go home. I'm saying, maybe after dinner, if it's appropriate for you and your family, like go take a walk or do something else besides, a tubby and TV or something, like there are ways to change it up where it's not so dramatic and to help yourself as a woman to say, I can balance these things in a way where I'm not saying like, I need to get away from everyone or I need everyone out of this space. And I'm not saying that those times don't happen. But if you can communicate effectively in your family unit to say, this will help the month go by better, you know,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
you perform better, generally speaking, like not so well in the beginning of the cycle, but once you hit the follicular phase and the ovulation phase, like those are peak times for a woman to like really get in good fitness.
Right. I
And then
see.
as you come into the luteal phase, like that's when you should be like, okay, I just want to do Pilates. I want to go for walks. I want to like, maybe take the kids on a bike ride. Like my husband just bought me a trailer to hook up to my bike to put the girls
Cute.
in so I can, yeah. And I love it. I'm like, let's go to the mailbox. And like, I do like a 3 mile bike ride with them. And that's important. And it's
Yeah.
something where, again, it's also a thoughtful moment where my husband was like, here, because I don't like to take the car everywhere. You
Right.
know, I'm
Yeah.
not a typical American. I shouldn't say that. I'm not typical in the sense where like I want to get in the car to go places. I want to be very European in the sense, and that's what I love about Italy is like walking out the door and walking everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
No place is perfect, but I like
Mm.
to bring pieces of those places into my life.
Yeah. 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 We Auckland's on 50 volcanoes, and you feel it. So,
Yeah, I bet.
like everything's a hill, and we literally just got my 4 year old a his bike for his birthday, and it came
Hmm.
yesterday, and I was like, brilliant. So now two out of the four have bikes, but we still can't go for bike rides because man, those hills are intense, and like we live at the bottom of a hill, and then at the top, once you got to like the top of our driveway, which is a hill, it's a hill. And so
Just
in order
hills.
in order to get anywhere flat, you have to cycle for about 14 kilometers. I'm joking, it's not that bad, but like you can't do those physical things. But like I thought it was cool what you were saying. Like people often not criticize. What's the word? Well, I wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym.
Hmm.
I get to gym at 5 till 6, and they say you're
Hmm.
insane. Why are you doing that? You could stay in bed. And I say, well, I can stay in bed for an hour, which is not even a full sleep cycle. And
Right.
if I wake up at 4, then I can do the one thing that I can do for me in that day. I feel better. I got to go to the gym. I just find it makes me perform better all round. And
Hmm.
then so like from the applying that to what you've been telling me is like, okay, I'm in my ovulation and luteal phase. This is the time I can do the workout that I actually want to do. Like if I'm trying to lift a heavier weight, this is my 2 week period, so I can do that now. And so it's
Yeah,
it's
so
like okay,
yeah.
let's from a husband's perspective, it's like okay, you're in the opportunity where you've got the energy to do the thing you want to do, and it's actually healthiest
Hmm.
for you to do that in.
Hmm.
I'm gonna change things for 2 weeks so that you
Hmm.
can fit that around it. And like you said, man, the communication thing is interesting. It's difficult because
It is.
not only are men not telepathic in the way you want us to be, but like fully knowing what is going on with yourself, male or
Mm.
female, and being able to articulate that in a way that is conducive to a relationship when you're
Hmm.
feeling the way you're feeling. Those are a lot of variables. you know, those
Yes, it is.
you've got to when you feel like crap. You can't just say, oh, I feel like crap, honey. Please could you? Blah, blah, blah." You shout, you scream, you give the silent treatment, and then the things that you can bear, maybe in the earlier parts of your cycle, are unbearable later on. And
Hmm.
it's the thing that I think is fascinating about communication is they say that the words that you say are only 8% of the communication.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
as much as it's and this is a mutual thing in a relationship of reading the room, reading the mood of your partner, um, paying attention to the environment. That's all communication.
Hmm.
And so the communication isn't always coming from our mouths. It's not even always coming from the person we're trying to communicate with.
Right.
Um, it's like, oh, there's somebody that my spouse struggles with. She's coming in. They're there. I know she didn't sleep last night. That's a communication. you know.
Right.
No.
Right.
So, have you come up with any tools for communication within your relationship?
It really is just talking, to be quite honest. I think what I've grown in over the past 12 years of being with my husband is not reacting.
Okay.
because I need to internalize, am I reacting out of anger because of an expectation he doesn't know about? Like he's not aware of, like even because, right, like you can read a room, there are all these things, but given our personalities, like my husband has poor spatial awareness, but like sometimes there's just like, no, he's, I sometimes he's like, I'm a caveman, whatever. And like, you have to know your spouse well enough to understand their communication style. And so he doesn't react. He's very Irish, my husband. And so, and I mean that in the most loving way. Like he's very like, okay, like I'm not emotional. You're enough emotion for all of us in this relationship. And so it's really been like, how can I reflect on what just happened and be able to have a respectful conversation? Because that's what happens is you stop having an actual conversation, and then that's when things get worse. Because like then the anger rises because someone hasn't addressed it yet, or someone hasn't said anything. And that's the other thing, is like addressing it right away is the better thing. And to your point of like content creation, of when we think like, oh well, I'm watching this and maybe like that's when dad missed this. Well, like it could be too, like, well, I just got off of work and now you're filming stuff, but like I had something to tell you. And
Right.
then like if you don't keep talking, then like who are you talking to? Well, I'm talking to more people on Instagram than I am to my husband, or my husband doesn't know how to talk about the things I'm talking about because I'm here and he's here and we're not reading the same things right now. And so, it's something you constantly have to be on top of, and I feel like people don't understand the work. Again,
Mm.
like it gets into that like, oh, how can we just make our lives easier versus like, how do we continue to work at this so it doesn't get so hard it falls apart?
Mm. Yeah, that's really cool. It's because there's a lot, like I said, there's lots of variables and there's lots of reasons why communication's difficult. Um, like imagine you're the
Yeah.
type of person that loves reading self-help books, and you just read this really good self-help book and it's giving you this really good tool, but like they don't know that.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm going
Right.
to do this thing, and
Right.
like and even like communicating that is difficult. It's funny you say your husband's Irish, and so he's not the emotional type. Me being Italian, I've had to learn to not be the emotional one.
Yes.
And so, like, I've always been very expressive, very active. And, I used to think that was a healthy thing because, at least I'm not holding anything in. But then I've realized
Hmm.
to a certain extent, the role of a husband and a man is to be like, just hold on to it because, we give him bigger muscles so we can carry heavier things. Uh,
Yes.
and this is like, where do we hide our emotions? In our muscles. How do we?
Well, it's funny. I'm laughing too because he like so he was like, "Oh, do you know how long like this is?" And I was like, "I don't know, like an hour, 2 hours." And he just sent me a text with question marks instead of like, "Hey," like I can't respond. But it's just
Oh,
so
right, yeah.
funny because I'm like, I joke about it, but I tried to like make the communicate. You know what I mean? So even now, it's
Mm.
like, okay, we have to be in communication because like. His parents are visiting and he's downstairs with the kids,
All
and it's
right.
like we've made these plans like, okay, if I can't go to dinner, I'll get a ride with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, and that those are things that can miss, right? Because if I just said to him like, oh, I don't know how long it's going to take, well then he's squandering with the kids. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have get you know what I mean? And so you need to have that, because at the end of the day, it's like these were the expectations set. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah.
if we don't set the expectation with each other, then what are we doing?
Right, right.
And that's the problem, is that we are so like, oh, and we don't even know expectation, because, and I think that's an algorithm thing. Like, I feel like you can loop this back into technology. You don't know how the algorithm's going to hit until you put it out there. But like, that doesn't work in our lives. Like, if you set the expectation, no one's going to blow up.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
But
and I
like,
think.
you don't know if, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, no, and I,
Go
and I
ahead.
think I think a rule for family, for faith, and for health is a way of life. So
Yes.
you decide, in like you can lay this out and work on it with your partner.
Yeah.
It's a case of, okay, I do shift work. We have 4 kids. Health is important to me.
Hmm.
Content creation, um, going to the gym.
Right.
These things are important for me. I feel they should be important for you too. But we're we're both different people, work it out. So this is the box that we're going to work on, and this is how we're going to try and structure it, and we're going to adapt until we get what we need. And I
Right.
think you can say it's probably better to have like certain principles and philosophies, because as we've been talking about, we see this more acutely in, you know, the female body. Things change from week to week, and so you have to be adaptable. But I think we can work around that by having a rule of life. Things what are
Right.
important for what's important for this family. Things that are important for this family are health, faith, whatever. And so, okay, those are the two principles that we're going to work on, and each individual is going to have an idea of how they're going to fit into those things. And
Right.
then we're going to communicate with each other in order to put it in. And that's our relationship with God. It's okay.
Right.
We've got mercy, which is God working with us, but we've got justice, which is doing the things that are necessary.
Right.
Mass on Sunday, obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Regular confession, devotional. All
Yes.
the devotionals can all look different, but it's important.
Yes.
If you use the rosary, from some people it's novenas, for some people it's this, for some people it's that, and we've got these
Right.
options. But you need to take life seriously. You need to
Right.
say, look, heaven is a reality, which means hell's a reality, and you don't need
Right.
to be just running away from hell, but you need to be forming that relationship with Christ, which is only possible because Christ came down from heaven.
Right.
And then the same's true of our faith, of our health. Yeah, sure. There's antihypertensives on the market, and you can live on them. But you can also take your health seriously and your life seriously, and say, you know what, we're gonna work and live in a certain way. That means we're not going to have to be on these things. And so,
Right.
and then if you are on those things, like okay, like I have ADHD. I avoided the medication for as long as possible because I learned about psychotropics and I didn't want any of them.
Right.
So I said, you know what, I'm going to live in a certain way that's going to mean that either I don't need the medication, or if I do need the medication, it's going to be the lowest dose possible. And that's where I found
Right.
myself. So, and you come up with rules for your life. For me,
Right.
I need to live what seems to be quite an intense life, which is wake up early, work out hard, and then do a really intense job, and then fill my
Yes.
life with other projects so that I keep stimulated. But I
Right.
need those things, and we need to come up
Right.
with a plan around those things, and we need to communicate those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a way of life, a plan of life, and a good communication skills is actually the key. I'm going to say is a great template for faith and for family. And so we just need to. All we have to do is work on those two things. It's only two things. It's just the two most complicated things.
Yes, they are. And I think it's hard to keep, especially in the midst of chaos in the world, right? It is so hard to keep Christ at the center. It's so hard, but that's why it's so important to be consistent about Mass and confession. Because I think
Mm.
Father Mike Schmidt said the hardest day to pray is the day after missed prayer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the
So,
same thing they say about habit forming. Don't miss 2 days in a row.
yes, yes. So I feel so bad. I'm like, oh, I can hear them downstairs. Mamma mia,
Yeah.
my
Well,
poor
yeah,
husband.
I'm going to let you go. I know exactly how you feel. Usually my kids are screaming
I
outside the door by now, but they've all headed out for a bit. So I'm going to let
oh,
you go. I've really enjoyed this, and I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours. It's been 2 hours, 2 hours and 16 minutes.
literally, it's
And
been great.
the great thing is for the blessing of the internet, we can just organize another one another time.
A
So
100%, I'm down.
if you have anything else you want to talk about, just send me a text. We'll organize another podcast. In the meantime, if people have listened to this point and they actually want to say, hey, I want to follow Gabriella, I want to know everything about her, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at organically integrated RN, and I'm on TikTok on the
Let
same
us
handle.
begin with the question.
Brilliant. So thank you for your time, Gabriella, and everybody listening. Thank you for your time. And don't forget, if you want to get involved in the mission, evangelion.co.nz. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the places. In July, we have someone coming out from Australia, Dr. Robert Haddad, to talk about Eucharistic miracles. The events will be coming out shortly, so stay tuned, stay curious, and stay Catholic. God bless.